so much for joining me on the last of my string diaries. It has been a month now that I have had Larsen's Cannone strings on the cello. It is almost spring, touch wood, and instead of me talking about how I found the experience, I wanted to really answer some of the questions about these strings that you guys wanted to know. So, question 1. How much do they actually cost? Well, if you're looking at buying a set of 4 strings, you are looking at about £230 for a set of Larsen Cannone. Now, compared to their Magnacore is about £222 for a set of 4. Sadly, we as cellists tend to be a bit difficult and mix and match and use different. So for example, on this set I've actually got 3 warm and 1 direct and focused. So technically I would probably end up buying either a set of the warm and broad and then the D. So it might come out as a little bit more expensive than the 230. If you look at it, it's not too much more than the Magnacore at 222. The originals, if you wanted to buy a full set of the originals, they are 187. But I personally think that the Magnacore and the Cannone are better. So that's my personal opinion only, and it purely on my cello as well. These prices are all from String Zone, but there's a really helpful PDF on the Larsen website. So if you go on there and have a look, you can find out more about mixing and matching the strings and finding out what is good for you. Question number 2. How long do strings actually last? Well, typically you are looking at 6 months for the A and D, and then hopefully you're looking between the sort of 9 months to a year for the G and the C. The C should last a year. This is obviously so subjective to the stuff around you. So for example, this January and this February, this month alone has been crazy for weather conditions, and my cello has been just going crackers. So that will obviously affect the lifetime of the strings because they've had to get warmer, get colder. It's been very stark contrast for these poor strings. But it will also depend on how much you're playing. Now, sadly, none of us are playing the amount that we used to play, so strings tend to last less time if you're playing more and longer if you're not playing so much. So it's completely dependent, but those are the rough guidelines. An A is about 6 months, D is a little bit longer by maybe a month or 2, then we're looking at 9 months for a G and a year for a C. Question 3. Now, tension of the strings. This is a bit of a minefield. I myself tend to just go for a medium because that's what I've always been told to do, which is never what you want to hear. You want to have made these decisions yourself by experimenting, but experimenting is expensive. So I found out for you. Now, Magnacore, you could have either a medium tension or a high tension. These are the 2 different options. Cannone is a little bit different. Cannone, you're looking at the warm and broad versus the direct and focus. And what's the difference? Well, they are all similar tension. Across the board on the warm and broads and direct focus, the C and G have a steel rope core and a tungsten winding, whilst both the Ds, but only the warm and bright A, have a stainless steel winding. Now, the direct and focus A is a unique material, and it is still being patented, so until that happens I can't really give you much more detail, but it's obviously something special. Again, I haven't got that on my cello, so I haven't tried it yet. But that's that. Another question. Under the ear versus out in the hall. Really important. What you hear under your cello day in, day out can be so different to what we hear as an audience member. And this can be really tricky, especially when you are picking strings. Now, personally, at the moment, bearing in mind the weather conditions, I'm personally finding it that I'm working quite hard with my bow to try and create the sound that I want. I would suggest that I'm working a little bit harder, especially on the G and the A, bizarrely enough, I haven't quite worked out whether this is something because of my decision to go direct and focused on the D, so whether the two outer strings are compensating for that. Touching on that, that was still the best decision for me and I stand by it. But I am feeling like it's so easy with the G, one wrong move with my bow and it suddenly goes from a beautiful pure sound to like a goose, a honking of a goose. That is the only way I can describe what's going on right now. So that's how I'm finding it under my ear. I'm finding that I'm having to work quite hard for a good pure sound. However, the strings are insanely responsive, and I think I haven't had that responsive kind of string before, so I'm having to learn to really make sure that my bow technique is up to scratch. The feedback I've had from the concerts that I've done during this month, which have obviously been live streamed, had actually not that much added to them in terms of the editing, but bear in mind it is not a live concert because we can't anymore. But I have been told that they don't hear any of that scratchiness that I'm hearing from underneath. All they hear is a really blended tone from what would be the audience point of view. So that is something to bear in mind. These strings do sound very different from under your ear to what you hear outside. The final verdict for me is that I'm happy to continue with Il Cannone. I might dabble back into the world of the Magnacore, but for now, I'm actually really happy. Disclaimer, and it's something I've talked about with my friend. I was given these strings. I am a Larsen contributor, but this is a genuine review. If I wasn't happy, that would be a different story and probably quite a complicated one. But I genuinely think with my cello, I like this sound and I like these strings on it. This might not work for you guys. I had a beautiful cello before. It was really old and it loved these Appacioni strings, and I loved the sound, and I tried to move it onto this cello and the strings were just like not having any of it, and it was a disaster. So just because I say that these strings are really great with my cello doesn't mean that they're going to necessarily work for you, and it's sadly it is trial and error, but usually similar instruments will feel the same. So my cello is a Montignana copy, and it is a 2015 Fabio Piagentini, and it's a beast of an instrument. It is huge, and I think it really benefits from having these Il Cannone strings. These Il Cannone strings, they are so well named. They are beasts of strings. They are super responsive. They are loud, and I think this cello can really deal with that. Other cellos might not be able to deal with such a big string, and it's, yeah, sadly it is just a case of trying and seeing how you feel. I'm interested to know how you're doing with them. Are you trying these strings? Are you enjoying these strings? Let me know how you're getting on, and I'd love to hear from you guys. I'd also love to hear whether you've enjoyed an actual string diary to see how someone settles in with the strings. Any other questions you have about these strings, if you message below, I will get back to you with a response. But until then, follow more of my journeys on From a Cellist Perspective, which can be found in the links below. Any of my Larsen contributing stuff you can also find in the other link below. But until then, guys, stay safe and stay healthy, and I will see you very soon. Goodbye!